Hi, so welcome to the first module, which is on understanding the basics of medical writing. Let's start from understanding the term medical writing. I would say medical writing is not writing, rather it is translating the scientific complex data into an understandable language for different types of audience. So the audience for a medical writer may vary from patients to researchers. So medical writer's job would be to translate same set of complex scientific data into a language which is understandable by a researcher. At the same time, it would also include translating the same set of complex scientific data into a language which is understandable to a patient, to a common layman. So it is more than just writing. It is about interpreting the data and translating it to the specific audience. Golden rule: stay clear and accurate, because we are the bridge between, we the medical writers are the bridge between the complex scientific data and a specific set of audience. Let's now come to the why. Why do we need medical writing? What role does medical writing have in healthcare? Examples are, its use cases would be: one, in drug development and approval. The researchers need regulatory documents. Two, the practitioners, the clinicians need this data in the form of CMEs, in the form of CPDs. Then we need to have patient leaflets, wherein patient education documents, even they fall under the umbrella of medical writing. And also we need these research papers. This shows, this connects the entire science community across the globe. So in a way, we can divide this broad spectrum of medical writing under two verticals. One would be of regulatory writing, the other one would be of the medical communications. They differ majorly because of the type of audience they cater to, the extent of precision and scientific terminology which is involved while preparing the documents. So when we will talk about regulatory writing, the audience will be government health authorities. The purpose will be to get a new drug or device approval. And whereas when we are discussing on medical communication, it would cater a wide audience varying from patients to doctors. And what would be the purpose for patients also? Medical communication would help them understanding their problem, and it would educate them to handle the condition in an effective way. And likewise, medical communication will help a doctor to, via CMEs and CPDs, it will help in upskilling the practicing clinicians. When talking about the key traits, the way in which medical writing would differ for these two types would be like, under regulatory writing, it needs to be extremely structured, detail-oriented, without any room for error. Whereas for medical communication writing also needs to be free of error. However, the data and the way of presenting this data would differ when it would fall under medical communication. So talking about the examples, CSRs, which are the clinical study reports and common technical document modules, these would fall under regulatory writing, whereas CME modules, patient education leaflets, as we discussed, would fall under medical communication. Now, how would a normal day in the life of a medical writer would look like? What all tasks he would be performing in a day? So his task sheet would include reading and interpreting scientific data. Scientific data could be in the form of a CME module. It could be in the form of an original research paper. It could be in the form of a comprehensive review paper. Then he needs to collaborate with various stakeholders. Stakeholders as in from where this data is coming, and also for the audience for which this data needs to be translated. So a medical writer would collaborate with with all the parties involved. It would also include now the once he is sure about the information presented in the document, he has done his collaboration meetings with the stakeholders. Once he is clear with the requirements about the translation of this existing document, he will now edit and make the required changes to this document. While making the changes, he has to stick to the compliance guidelines. At the same time, while doing all of this, he has to stick to the timelines and ensure that all the projects are delivered on time, and everything, whatever piece of information is going into the document from his end needs to be doubly cross-checked. Facts should be in place. So now just if let's try to take this up. Which of the following is an example of regulatory writing? A blog post? Certainly not. Blog post is written for a very wide audience. A patient leaflet? Again, no, because it is a sort of patient education document. A clinical study report? Yes, it is a regulatory writing piece which is meant for government authorities like FDA, EMA, and which the documents which are required for new drug researches. So now coming to the next part of the module, understanding and writing for your audience. So audience, what exactly would it mean in medical writing, as we are discussing this in previous slides also? The type of translation of the complex scientific data depends on the audience for which you are rewriting it. Right? So the rewriting part can be different. Same scientific data can be translated in a different way depending on the type of audience you will be catering to. So for example, if we are catering a population of regulators such as specialist physicians, researchers, this complex, we won't, as a medical writer, we won't make much change to the data. Otherwise also we won't change the data, but what I mean when I say we won't make much changes to the data is like we will in the output document, we will have all of the data. However, the data presentation should be in a form which is understandable, which is meaningful, which makes some sense to these researchers and which helps them in their drug trials. Whereas now, if we are talking about the same scientific data for a different set of audience, which can be of doctors, nurses, or pharmacists, we will take the data points which are relevant to be included in a CME module. There could be some data which is not very relevant to the healthcare practitioners, but some theoretical aspects which need to be included in these CME modules. However, if our audience now changes to patients and caregivers, so we have to be very particular that complex data may not make much sense, may not help our patients in understanding what they can do better in managing in handling their clinical situations. So we have to translate that data in a form which makes some change, some behavioral change in their practices, in our patients' routine practices. So we can take a case study. For example, we are talking about myocardial infarction. So if we are talking about a cardiologist reading on myocardial information, the way of presenting the data would be different. We would write the patient presented with an acute ST segment elevation myocardial infarction, right? Whereas for a GP, for a general practitioner, we would tell him, keep the patient suffered a major heart attack caused by a complete blockage. Whereas the same information, when we will be presented to a patient, we won't talk about scientific terms, about medical terms like myocardial infarction. We would tell him in his language that he had a heart attack and what is the reason and what can he do uh, to prevent such episodes from happening again. So, as a medical writer, we need to adapt our writing style. We need to customize it depending on the audience. So, as we already saw, for experts, the tone will remain data driven. All the data will be transferred to the new document, to the output document. It has to be objective, and there would be medical terminology and precise abbreviations will have to be used, and all the abbreviations also need to be defined at first instance of their usage. The focus will be, there would be attention to detail, and we need to adhere, we need to double check all the guidelines, right? Whereas when we are talking about the patients, the data which we are translating, it would be in their language. So tone needs to be kept empathetic. Language, even if it is meant for patients, we must avoid using jargon. Rather, we should use simple statements and analogies which help them to understand the point. And focus again, what we have to ensure that in these patient education leaflets, we should give them the actionable points, what they can do, what they can change, right? That's where the document would add some value to their disease condition. So let's try doing this. This statement is originally meant for a doctor. It reads as adherence to the prescribed pharmacotherapeutic regimen is imperative to mitigate the risk of adverse clinical sequelae. So if we want to rephrase it for a patient, we will remove the medical terms such as adherence, pharmacotherapeutic regimen. Then instead of adverse clinical sequel, we can simply write maybe side effects, right? So we can simply tell a patient that you should take you should take this drug in proper doses to avoid any side effects, right? You should take these medicines in proper doses at proper timings to avoid any side effects. So something like that. Now coming to the third part of the session, which is on what all online resources and digital tools we need to make our work more efficient and easier. So talking about the digital essentials, we should know to work on, I mean, this is nothing new. We should know to work on Microsoft Word. We should, for making presentations, we should be handy with Microsoft PPT. And then, yeah, this reference manager using tools like Mendeley and Note, this really comes very handy when we want to. This especially goes with writing research papers or thesis, wherein we need to manage the list of the references. So these tools really come handy. Yeah, so now we cannot not talk about AI in the perspective of medical writing. So first thing we need to relieve ourselves with is artificial intelligence won't replace us. And we need to use AI as our co-pilot for tasks such as summarizing research. So the research papers are pages long. So AI can really help us in summarizing these long pages without missing out on any important detail. Then it improves the clarity of, yeah, rephrasing becomes a little easier, especially when it comes to patient education leaflet. It does become easy with an AI tool. Then certainly tools like Grammarly, they will help in making your document grammar wise hygienic. Then, yeah, however, as we really need to understand that every fact, because there are many practical, real challenges happening with AI. AI does hallucinate a lot. So every fact which is suggested, see, AI is not generating anything on its own. It is populating the data which is already fed into it. So if you want to ask AI about anything new or about any latest development, it may goof it up. So whatever fact, and the best part, rather the worst part, AI would never say no to any question which you give into it as a prompt. So every fact which AI is generating for you, please double check it. Please be factually sure about it. Now, talking about resources as in the online literature, medical and scientific literature, which you have to refer to. Never ever, I would suggest, never ever Google the facts, scientific facts upfront. Rather, rely on more established and evidence-based resources such as PubMed, then clinicaltrials.gov, or in India, it is Clinical Trial Registry India. Right, then Stedman's online version is available. And when it comes to referencing, most commonly being used is American Medical Association manual. Otherwise, we do use Vancouver's also, right? And finally, we need to understand this, that final fact check. We never need to assume anything, as we discussed in the previous slide, that the role of medical writer comes over here in discussing the requirement with the stakeholders. So always talk to your SMEs, to the subject matter experts, right? So now coming to the concluding part. So 3 takeaways. Medical writing is the critical link between complex scientific data and the specific audience. 2, audience makes the difference. Same data would be different for a patient from what you are curating or rewriting for a researcher. 3, software, online resources, and certainly AI co-pilots, but everything would be guided by your own expertise and your SMEs. Thank you. Keep yourself tuned for the second module. Thank you.